The election is just 1 week away, and the road to the Senate and the White House runs through Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the race between the incumbent Democratic Senator Bob Casey and Republican Dave McCormick looks like pretty much a dead heat going into the final stretch. The pundits at this point calling it a toss-up. Joining us now to discuss is the senior senator from Pennsylvania, Bob Casey. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to see you, Senator.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
You're trying to win your fourth term. This is looking like it is going to be extremely close. So I'm curious what your closing message is for voters.
Well, look, I think this is a really clear choice for the people of Pennsylvania. In my case, I'm a senator who's delivered for our state, delivered record investments in communities, in families, and in by way of infrastructure. My vote helped cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. I'm the senator who voted in favor of the PACT Act to help our veterans who serve near these toxic burn pits. So I've delivered for the people of Pennsylvania. And my opponent, while I was doing all that, was run the biggest hedge fund in the world, investing in our adversaries like China, investing in Chinese military companies, companies that were producing arms with that went to Iran and other places around the world. So this is a very clear choice. I think it's also a clear choice on rights, whether it's voting rights, women's rights, or workers' rights. I'm on one side, he's on the other. So I think the people of our state have a very, very clear choice.
All right, Senator, let's talk more issues if we can. According to a new ABC News Ipsos poll, the economy, inflation, and protecting American democracy are the top three issues for registered voters nationwide. What are the biggest issues for Pennsylvania in this election?
Well, there's no question. I think the cost of living is the central concern of most families. And if you're a legislator, you ought to be able to tell them what you've done to try to get costs down. One of the things we did in 2021 in the pandemic was to provide a child tax credit. That one piece of legislation, or part of a piece of legislation, drove down child poverty by 40%. But while that was happening, of course, corporations were engaged in what I call greedflation, jacking up the cost of food, jacking up the cost of household items, and making it difficult for families to make ends meet. That is price gouging. And when that happens, we ought to go after them really hard. We've got to pass a bill to do that. I'm for the bill and leading it. My opponent is opposed to it because he won't take on this corporate greed. He refuses to go after these companies, and he refuses to roll back their big corporate tax breaks, which I've already voted against, and I'll vote against them again in 2025. If they're going to try to put a big corporate tax break and a billionaire tax break into effect, I'm going to vote against it. My opponent's plan is to vote for it and to put Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security on the chopping block.
All right, Senator, let's talk about a recent ad where you surprised many by highlighting your support for certain Trump administration tariff and trade policies and your break from Biden on fracking. Why did you decide to emphasize these pro-Trump stances so close to an election day?
Well, look, it's important when you're running, especially as an incumbent, to give people a full sense of your record. Look, the fact of the matter is, on trade issues, I've opposed my party often. I opposed President Obama's trade deal about a decade ago, a little less than a decade ago, in 2015, and I supported the last Republican administration when they tried to change NAFTA to make it more worker friendly, to make sure that if we're going to have a trade agreement with Canada or Mexico, that we had labor standards and that they're enforceable. So it was the first trade deal I ever voted for, and I think people should know that before they vote. And when any administration does something that I think is contrary to the interests of Pennsylvania, whether it's on energy or trade or foreign policy, I'm going to oppose that administration.
Let's talk about the ballots in Pennsylvania. There's been a lot of back and forth in PA about what to do about those improperly cast mail-in ballots. What do you think should happen?
Every vote in this election in Pennsylvania will be counted. There's no question about that. We have the structures in place. We have a good team at the state level, at the Department of State, and we have others that are working together to make sure that this happens. So when there's an allegation of fraud or an allegation of any kind of problem, that will be investigated thoroughly. This will be a free and fair election in Pennsylvania, and every single vote will be counted.
All right, Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey. Senator, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and good to see you.
Good to be with you.